So we've done Win, Learn, Change. We've done Change Journal, which or we talked about that, which is what will I change next, right? So I want to talk about one of the other formulas in here, which is struggle, release, flow, recovery.
Right, flow cycle.
Yeah. So you got into so let's talk about running a business is a bit like running an Ironman.
The more you can adapt, the less you have to endure.
It's tough. It does require a level of mental endurance.
Yeah.
It does require a level of strategies
Yeah.
and stacking. And you do need to look after your body physically.
What underpins performance in anything? Fundamentally,
Yes.
Are you in an optimum state of mind? Could be energy, could be composure, could be... So that all of the skills that you've learned over time show up.
Yeah.
If you can master those things, you're going to be in a good space to perform well. That's a hack.
That's amazing.
That's a hack.
Can we talk about recovery?
The necessity, not luxury of recovery. The best advice I can give you. Where do I go to find out how to recover like a professional? So there's a model that Special Forces use, which is fascinating, called oscillation. It looks like this, right? So it's called...
If I want to perform at peak, I need to understand that I cannot just keep pushing at peak all day.
Stress, recover, stress, recover, stress, recover. Then you do something that gets you to cognitively, physiologically repair, restore. So oscillating is what you do. Is between...
It's like it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah. And burnout doesn't happen overnight.
Entrepreneurs need to learn a lot of these skills. What did you enjoy about sales? Because if you're going to be successful in a business, sales is a core skill you have to have, right?
Yeah,
I question.
Do you need...
And it's certainly been a game changer for me the more I focused on it.
Yeah, and I talk about that quite a bit.
You're speaking at this year's Scale Up Summit. What are you going to teach entrepreneurs that are looking to scale their businesses and I'd say high performance, productivity and profitability?
Yeah.
What's your session going to help them get to?
It all comes under the umbrella of the science of performance, because I want to make sure that it's data-led. These three elements of the process I set up in the book, which is better, smarter, stronger, is the strategy of how to build a psychological home game when you're in a geographical away game. Metaphorically, anything that's challenging or uncomfortable, how do you build the structure in the brain that connects to things like resilience and willpower, and how you fuel them is having a really clear active recovery strategy. So we'll definitely cover that as well.
That would draw the conference to a beautiful ending. I'm really excited about that. What happened in 2020?
Right.
So was I right? Did I read somewhere that you had like a broken back or something at some point? Or like, because I was looking in the book and I go, no, he can't possibly, because you, what happened in 2020?
Okay. All right. Well, I said this is why I like these podcasts. This is not something that comes up in work, right? You know, if I'm speaking at a conference, I don't talk in my backstory. When I say back, I mean literally my back as well.
Literally your back.
Yeah. Well, I'd had going back a little further, year 2000, I did the London Marathon. Right.
Right.
And you know, I reasonably healthy, but I did play sport as a kid. But it wasn't like I was an athletic type. You know, did it for a challenge, like most people do. But the 6 months after that, I was having surgery on my back. My kind of back collapsed a little bit, just a prolapse disc. Within 3 months after that, or maybe 6 months after that, I ended up having 2 discs fused.
Ouch. And
some rods straight into my spine. And then I had about 3 knee operations over the following 5 or 6 years. So by 2019, I was waking up. It was on my birthday, and I was about 54 then. I was feeling like I was on the way down physically. Right? I thought, is this as good as it gets? I'm kind of getting out of bed. It's like another one of those. Is this as good as it gets? If I have my best days, and I just thought, God, that can't be true. And my daughter challenged me. Actually, I was still telling her about this, and she said, "Why don't you do something ridiculous? Take on something that you don't know you can do." But you're going to have to work out how to do it. And certainly your current strategy isn't working, right? Because I was still, you know, exercising, running, and I kept getting injured over and over and over again.
I think your doctor said you should take up table tennis.
Take up table tennis. Afterwards,
great piece of advice. Thanks for
that. He said, you got to stop running. And I said, I'm not even running at the minute. He said, well, why don't you take up table tennis? So I thought, well... Okay, so I hit a bit of a wall, and I thought, what's ridiculous? And I was aware of this idea of the Ironman triathlon, because it was just a bit of an iconic thing in my head. Never done it, obviously, never even trained for anything like that. But I thought I'd cycled a little bit, done a few challenges on the bike. I thought that would be a ridiculous thing to do in 12 months. So I set that as the goal. First thing, of course, I'm thinking is, well, I need some radically different new ways of doing things, like how I run. You know, obviously that's a problem. I won't go through the whole backstory because you can read in the book. But I started to work out some strategies. So after that 12-month period, I was ready to go to Copenhagen.
Right.
So 2019 was the race day in August, July, August. Anyway, 6 weeks before, I got knocked off my bike and woke up in a ditch in an ambulance. I thought I broke my neck. It was
you got knocked off your bike.
Yeah, go ahead. I did. Woke it literally face planted in a ditch. Woke up in the ambulance. I thought I broke my neck. I mean, as I hit it, I remember the sound. Anyway, I didn't. I was lucky. It didn't. Got some injuries. Had about 3 months training, off training to get over it. Reset the goal because I'm going to do this thing. I've been training for a year. Reset the goal for April 2020, which was to go to Dallas and do it was the Houston one over in Texas, Houston Ironman. Because I was working over there for a few weeks with Deloitte. So I thought, that's perfect. I can get back in my training. Well, obviously, I was ready to fly over there in April for that, and March 2020 hit.
Yeah.
So that got cancelled. So now it's like 2 years I haven't done it, right? And then I had to roll it over a year to the following year. That got cancelled because of COVID. So now
hang on a second. So, like, mentally, where are you at that point?
Yeah.
Like, where are you mentally?
What was supposed to be a 12-month project is now a 3-year journey, right? If I go back a little, during 2020, 2021, maybe even come back to what happened there, but apart from the fact that my business fell off the edge of a cliff, right? My 12-month pipeline evaporated like most people who fly around the world speaking at conferences. So, at the mid-2020, I had 12 to 18 months on this training cycle to do an Ironman that was just stalling. Business had just, dropped. I had a book deal. So I had the book deal, which I couldn't think straight for all the obvious reasons. I had no intention of putting the Ironman in the book. This was just a private little project.
Right.
But after 3 years of this, so much more was coming out of this process for me. I only put it's only one chapter. It's not about the Ironman. But what I was developing over those 3 years, strategies I was learning that, frankly, if I'd done it in 1 year, it would have been the worst thing that could have happened. The best thing that happened was having that accident, because it stopped me doing it and caused me to have 2 more years of research.
Yeah.
Which, learning about the nutritional strategies, I'd been running barefoot for 3 years. That's changed my life. I'm not going to go hard on that one.
Really?
Because it's not for everybody, and people are going to push back.
We love that. We love it.
Right.
But I think it's okay. For me, that's just challenging a belief that we've been conditioned about, isn't it? It's like there's a load of beliefs that we've been conditioned about actually because they help someone else sell you a product.
Right. And
like
it's called,
a lot of the time.
And I had at that chapter, swimming against the current.
Yeah.
Right. It's hard swimming against the current.
Totally.
Right. And yeah, I did read a book called Running with the Kenyans, and I did my research, and I consulted people who are experts in the field, because I knew that whatever I was doing, I'd had a history of operations.
Yeah.
Right. So it wasn't working. I started running, but it took about 6 months of transition. So don't rush into it. Right. 6 months, I didn't even run much. I was just, I was walking in them. Right. And I've run barefoot for the last, whatever it's been now, the last 3 or 4 years. Barefoot shoes. They're not barefoot.
Yeah, no, there's a client, the gentleman who's coming in later to do a podcast. He's just moved to those. And he's complete. Right. I walked in, I met him the other day. I said, you're taller. And he went, I'm not. I said, you look it. And he said, no, I'm just wearing these particular new shoes, barefoot shoes. And he said, and he said, it's just making me stand better. He said, I've the calf pain's gone away.
It's unbelievable.
It completely changed his life, and he's only been wearing them for like 3 weeks, and he's on his feet all the time.
Yeah, well, I'd had, since, my first marathon when I was a kid, I was 20, I did my first one. Pretty much from then on, I had pain. 30, 40 years worth of chronic back pain, multiple operations, knee operations, as I've explained. Since I started wearing barefoot shoes, and I wear them running shoes, I have had no knee pain, no back pain. It's just mind-blowing. So, again, I don't want to overpitch it. It's worked for me.
No, but it's quite well for you.
But
I always say to people, listen, don't buy. I mean, I don't know. I'm a big fan of Jim Rohn, right? So Jim Rohn used to say, beware of the man selling new fundamentals, number one, because there aren't any new fundamentals. There are just fundamentals. Yeah. Number two, he said, don't buy my philosophy, create your own. And I'm a great believer that, look, we share great things that have worked for us. You're sharing what worked for you. I'm sharing what worked for me, right? Like for me, I'm a big believer in you can manifest most things, but you have to be at the right frequency to do it.
Right.
And, but I sometimes think that the universe has a hilarious way of sending you in a direction that it wants you to go, even if you don't understand that. Right. The falling off the bike would be a really good example of that. My wife ending up in a coma was another one, because it completely changed my life. And for the better, it's just, sometimes when it happens, it looks like I often think like a diversion looks like a massive interruption regularly. Like if something goes horribly wrong in your life and you'll go, oh, so it's a good disaster. And it wasn't a disaster. It was a diversion.
Right.
And the universe was trying to get you back on track, or it was trying to get you to learn something that it wanted you to absorb and learn before you actually were trying to do what you wanted. But you don't see it that way because it's painful normally when it happens, right? Yeah. And it's usually pretty dramatic.
Yeah. It was
so if you're off course by a bit, the universe goes, "That fastest way to get you back on course is to knock you off your bike."
Well, that's definitely. I can relate to what you're saying. Right? Theoretically,
it doesn't make any sense.
It's challenging theoretically.
Yeah, it's challenging.
But
I get it.
But I can relate to it because it put you into a different trajectory.
Right.
That's been an absolute game changer.
Right. And you wouldn't have got there.
I wouldn't have got there
without that.
I wouldn't have got there.
It's like
highly unlikely.
Yeah. And I think that's what's hilarious is that there's the brilliant Chinese proverb, I've said it before, but is that you live life forwards and understand it backwards. And when you're living it forwards, you don't see that's what was happening to you.
Yeah.
And some of them make no sense at the time. And then 5 years later, you look back and you go, oh, that's interesting. Because if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have ended up doing that. I wouldn't have met this person. That wouldn't have occurred. And you go, it's like the sliding doors moments, isn't it? But like, I swear there is a force bigger than us that if we're off course, will get us back on course.
Right.
And sometimes that adjustment is not always, it's not subtle.
No, not subtle. And you're right, that concept of, sometimes the most impactful moments in our life are the most difficult and most meaningful.
Yeah.
And often we use that retrospectively.
Yes.
Like I look back and say, yeah, man, that was challenging. But no, now I think about it, that was a good thing. I like this concept, and I talk about this a little in the book, and I talk about it lately with clients, that you can take that and use it in advance. As you look down the barrel of the future right now, if you think in advance, look, this is going to be difficult, challenging, as much as it's going to be inspiring and full of opportunity, but every element of that is necessary, right? And I use this term that, psychologists love this term, the adventure.
I like that in the book. I love that.
Accept the adventure. And I think it is a good word, because the word adventure, when I ask an audience, what comes to mind when you think of an adventure? And they'll shout out anything from fun, challenge, exciting, developmental. They'll equally say risk, danger, the unknown. And you go, yeah, it's all in there. The snakes and ladders are all in the adventure. Right? The adventure isn't predicated on success.
No.
The value of the adventure is the adventure. And I love that. And I think I can accept that now as I look forward, not just when I look back. So then when something happens that is, you hit a snake, because they're going to happen, I'm almost thinking in the moment, that wasn't the plan. I'm not sure I wanted that to happen, but there's something in this. There's a reason for this somewhere.
Yeah.
And if I just process it and push past it and move on and lean into it.
Yeah.
And the great thing about the word adventure is it triggers dopamine, even the word.
Yeah, it does.
Right. If I go, do you want to come on an adventure? You almost psychologically go, what? You kind of lean in a little
yes,
bit.
Please.
Right. Because, this anticipation of something interesting. So, think about that. If I frame the future, as I look ahead to AI, challenge, opportunity, whatever that whole, whatever it means downstream, and I go, it's all part, I can say this in my mind, of the adventure of my life, I start to feel like I want to lean into it.
Yeah.
Right? It becomes this proactive choice. So, to get back to the adventure of the Ironman.
Did you ever think about quitting in the middle of that, or was it just okay, this is the delay, not a denial kind of moment?
I never thought about quitting it.
Right.
I often thought, can I do it? And I don't know how to do it. But a bit like when I was a mechanic for 4 years, right? I wasn't going to bail it.
Yeah, I'm interested where that comes from, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with that. They struggle with follow through.
Right.
Like they're very good at starting stuff and not always finishing it. And I think was that just inbuilt in you? Or you just disciplined in that way to go, if I start a project, I finish it?
I think I've had enough iterations in my life of bounce back. And if I decide that I'm going to get to this point, I feel there's something, it's a worthy pursuit, I like to aim up, and I think life is about aiming up in some sense. I wasn't gonna dip out.
Did you get, so I just want to break it down, because I think it's a fascinating, because I think quite often we go, yeah, let's go on an adventure. It's going to take 12 months. And then it takes 3 years. Yeah. And it's like, actually, I'm going on an adventure. It might take longer than 12 months. It might take 12 months, but I'm going to go on the adventure.
Yeah. The goal, the Ironman became a goal within the adventure in my mind.
Right.
Right. So the adventure is just it's a direction of travel.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Love that.
It's a dot on the horizon.
Yeah.
Right. And right now I'm trying to achieve this particular goal. And the reason that the Ironman kind of fit in, because Honestly, I hadn't thought about it much until quite recently, when I reflect back on that period of time where, certainly for a period of time in 2020 from March, for about 6 months when everyone's trying to regroup and rethink and reinvent, I've certainly lost an identity, who I am. Because, 3 or 4 times a week, I'm walking into a conference speaking about something, or I'm working with a client, and there's a purpose to that, and it's meaningful to me, and that's my identity of who I am in life.
Yeah.
A large part of it.
Got it.
Well, if that's suddenly, it's very rare you completely lose that in a heartbeat, which I experienced. I'm not saying everyone did. So at that time, I was training for this challenge, this Ironman, and I was using that identity, because I talk about that often in the book, about define yourself based on what's possible, not based on what you've done. So, for example, it's like if someone they want to get into a leadership role, well, the time to start defining yourself as a leader is now, not when you get the nod.
Yeah.
Right. And I use the story of when someone came to me and genuinely came to me during the lunch break of an event and said, like, I'm running the London Marathon in 5 months. How do I deal with the stress? You were talking about performance anxiety this morning. I said, well, what do you mean? She said, well, last year, someone died, just dropped dead. And I said, I read about that. It's the London Marathon. And she said, look, I'm no athlete. And I said, well, okay, hang on a second. If your goal is just to get rid of the stress, I got a very simple solution for you. Right? Yeah. Take it out of your schedule. Yeah. Don't do it. Make it go away. Yeah. And if you can control life to that extent, good luck. Right? Not always that easy. She said, no, I got to do it. I've signed up with a charity. I said, okay, look, the best advice I can give you, because a moment ago you said I'm no athlete. And if you're going to say I'm no athlete and you've got a marathon in 5 months, that's a big disconnect between your intent, your ambition, and your identity.
Massive.
Right? I said, so you've got to start, it's just a mind game, and it's delusional. What I'm about to say is delusional. From now on, when we go out tonight at the networking event and someone says, what do you do outside of work? And you say, I like to travel, I've got the family. And say, oh, by the way, look him in the eye and say, and by the way, I'm a marathon runner. And she looked at me like that, disconnect, like, well, I'm not, am I? I haven't done it yet. I said, I know that. You know that. Your brain doesn't care. This seeking system will switch on and be driven by what your predominant thought process is. And if all you're seeing is the reasons why you can't do it, it's highly unlikely you're going to turn up in the right state of mind to do it. So start the process now. It's 5 months away. Every day you're saying to yourself, I'm a marathon runner. It's a bit like a manifestation thing. I'm a marathon runner.
But it's like so go back to W. Clement Stone and Napoleon Hill, right? Think and Grow Rich. I can't remember which chapter it is. It's either 3 or 4 in Think and Grow Rich.
Right.
Talks about auto-suggestion.
Right.
So the power of auto-suggestion, and that you have to program your mind for the person you want to become. Yeah. That's the only way to change your identity. It's in Think and Grow Rich. It's one of the most it's one of the most
it's a fundamental.
But it's misunderstood. It's misunderstood because most people think, programming your mind, or that's, and it's like, no, hang a second. There's only one way to do it, and that's affirmations. And you just said that. It's like I'm a marathon runner.
Yeah.
I'm a marathon runner. Yeah, I am a marathon runner. I haven't run it yet, but I am one. I have to be before I can do, right?
Yeah, you got to legitimize the fact that you've set this goal. I said, you've set the goal, right? Now you've got to align yourself to it. I said, and by the way, you can call yourself a marathon runner. I said, you training for this thing? She says, yeah. I said, how often? 5 times a week. I said, who trains 5 times a week?
Marathon
runners.
Yeah.
Right? Are you buying all the Lycra and the 200 quid shoes? She goes, yeah, of course you are.
So you're a marathon runner. Yeah.
I said, are you reading about Are you reading about running yet? She said, what? I said, are you reading about running? She said, I got a few magazines on running. I said, who reads about running? She went, marathon runners? Correct. You're doing the things a marathon runner would do. It's not just saying you are. When you're doing things that a marathon runner would do, you can legitimately claim to be a marathon runner. But the point is, ultimately, what do marathon runners tend to do? They tend to run marathons.
They run marathons.
It's the most natural thing in the world for a marathon. You'd expect one in your schedule.
Yep.
That wouldn't be freaking you out.
Yep.
Now, then I said, you can that's your unconscious mind. Now you need to then, because she said, yeah, but how do I get that sense of confidence? I said, okay, so let's give you something conscious to think about that will just satisfy you. I know that's enough, right? Defining yourself based on what's possible, not based on your past. But let's use your past. Let's get some concrete references that cause confidence to happen. I said, think back to any time in your life when you achieved something challenging, anything from your life. Don't tell me what it is. Just think back to a time in your life. So she paused, she's thinking. I said, okay, have you got one? Yeah, I've got one. Okay, now when you think about what you did and how you came out the other side, what did that achievement earn you the right to say about yourself?
Right.
In one word. And so tell me what comes to mind. And she went, determined. I said, okay, determined. Okay. write it down, determined. Think of another time. Any time in your life where you did something difficult, challenging, where you had to dig deep.
Right.
She thought back, okay, what did that earn you the right to say about yourself? She said, I was super focused. I said, focused, determined and focused. I said, now I could do 2 or 3 more, but let's just pause on 2. They're real events, grounded in reality. That was you who was that, right? Now you write down focused and determined. I'm a focused and determined marathon runner. So you put in the attributes that you have evidence for, that you've tested and you've delivered on, and you attach it to this definition of what you're moving towards. That'll make you feel better because you cognitively, consciously go in, that's real.
Yeah. Right.
So you're drawing on the past, right? But you're defining it in this frame that's taken you up to where you set the ambition to go to, right? Feels good, feels clearer, direction of travel's clear, and you feel like you're aligning to it. And it's an antidote to imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
That's effectively what it is, right? Imposter syndrome is, I've got the job as a leader. I don't see myself as a leader.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the marathon, but I'm no marathon runner. Well,
I think imposter syndrome is just an identity gap.
It's an identity gap.
I think that's exactly all it is. I think everyone's going, I've got imposter syndrome. And I'm like, no, you've just got an identity gap between where you see yourself and what you've just done.
Based on your past, this is what you decided to be.
So close the identity gap.
That's exactly what it is.
But I think everybody goes, I've got imposter syndrome. I must be broken. And I'm like, no. Hang on a second. When somebody gave you a bike for Christmas, like you didn't as a child go, well, I've got imposter syndrome now. I've got to ride a bike. I've never ridden a bike before. I've got terrible imposter syndrome. I can't possibly ride a bike. It's like you just went, okay, never done that before. Let's put the stabilizing wheels on and let's go. And it's like, and I think we've lost that childlike ability to go, I'm okay to sit in the zone of feeling uncomfortable while I become skilled because you're like, start doing podcasts. First ones, they're not great because you don't know what you're doing. You're figuring it out, right? And then the more you do, the better you get. And you go, oh, now I'm comfortable with this. I get the game. I understand what I'm supposed to be doing now. But you have to be okay to be uncomfortable long enough to get good at something. And I think most people struggle with that.
Yeah, I think it's true. Yeah, I think it's a barrier to entry. If you're not prepared to lean into hard things.
Yeah.
And discomfort. And it's not to say that, we're not masochists, like I want pain, but you're going, well, you should want discomfort because discomfort is taking responsibility. Discomfort can be, ownership, the discomfort of expectation. And you go, but that's a route to where you're saying you want to go.
Yeah.
Right. And if you can embrace that and see it as it's a contributing factor to building your willpower, your resilience. There's a great video I've been using a lot from Andrew Huben recently on this anterior mid-singular cortex, right? Bit of a mouthful, but the anterior mid-singular cortex is the brain structure that gets bigger when you delay gratification or you do hard things. So he's saying the strategy here for building resilience is just do things that are hard to do. Now, and it could be of any context. It could be, I don't know, filling out your expenses. Like it's not difficult to do it. It's hard to get myself to do it. Well, if you close the gap between thinking about it and doing it, and you just go, okay, just do it. Or it could be getting up and going for that run at 7 a.m. when it's raining. I said I'd do it. I don't want to do it. Just do it. Those things where you just do the things that are hard to do, this brain structure gets bigger. Now, you don't need resilience every day. You may not need it every week, but you're going to need it.
Well, you're going to need it at some point in your life. Fact. It's going to happen.
And you want to make sure that the system is built ready for it. So how do you build the system? Just do the things that are hard to do.
Yeah.
Right. To lean in. And then once you make that conscious decision to lean in, it's a bit like, develop a growth and you become stronger based on the amount of things you choose to do voluntarily that are difficult. Voluntarily is the key word. And I often use that example of, what are those activities like Tough Mudder? Those Spartan Trail.
The Wolf Run. Those ones, yes.
Yep.
I have a client of mine who owns a brand called Wolf Eyewear, and he regularly gets loads of people to come and do the Wolf Run every year. And it's hilarious because everyone thinks it's his run. Right. It's not, but everyone thinks so. How did you organise all of this? Yeah. And he just stands there and smiles.
Yeah. So what you got there is you got people turning up in the middle of winter at 6 a.m. to crawl through a muddy field full of water obstacles, right, and literal obstacles,
right,
for 6 hours. Yeah. Right. Now, think about an alternative situation. Let's imagine your car breaks down at 6 a.m, your phone battery's dead, and you've got to walk 3 hours home in the pouring rain. That's miserable. It's nothing as bad as the Wolf Run. It's not even close.
Yeah.
So how come they're inspired and I'm miserable? Well, because they've chosen to lean in.
Yeah.
I don't want to be doing this. Right? If I could shift that mindset very quickly and say, of course, I don't want to be broken down and walking, but actually I can choose, to your point, that response to go, I'm going to lean into this. I'm going to voluntarily do this with some energy.
Yeah.
And it's the same situation, literally transformed. And you can take that into any set of challenges, right? Of course, on the face of it, I don't want this. Well, that's why I'm going to lean in.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to build this brain structure that one day I'm going to need.
Right. You use a brilliant example in the book, actually. You talk about the difference between two people. There's a great visual in the book of, somebody in an ice, going in an ice bath, who's like, this is terrible, doing the man intensity thing. And then the wonderful lady next door who sat zen-like sitting in it, like meditating in it. And I've done an ice bath for 4.5 minutes. So I can kind of, but again, I think, with all of this, there's also a strategy piece for me, which is like the minute I knew I was going to do that, I got in touch with someone who teaches this stuff, and I went, right, what are 3 things that I need to do that will help me get through the 4 minutes? Because I had a massive fear of the cold. I've had, all my life I had issues with the cold, and I go, but I want to do this because I don't want to be run by that fear. So like I'm going to put myself in a position of being uncomfortable intentionally, right? Yeah. So. And it was really simple, and he just gave me a couple of pieces of great advice. Number 1, wear gloves, because like your fingers will go first. Right. Like, so if your fingers are warm, you tend to feel warm. Number 2, wear a hat. Like put a woolly hat on, because if you're in the ice bath with a woolly hat, that'll keep an insane amount of heat in your body, and your temperature won't drop, your core won't drop as fast. Right. And just 2 little tips like that. And then I went, I used an old, you'll laugh at this, I used an old Tony Robbins trick. Do you remember, when you just stand up to do the fire walk, and you do cool moss, don't you, right? Like, so your brain thinks you're walking on cool moss. I went, well, what if I flip the script on that, right? Rather than cool moss, I went warm wood. So like walking up to this thing to get in, I was going warm wood, because I was like, my feet will be really warm. So when I put my feet in, it didn't feel like as freezing cold, right? And so anyway, I did about 4.5 minutes, but I think just talk about that, because there's a brilliant line in there where you say it's the difference between, explain, there's a brilliant line in it. I can't remember what it is about when you try and battle through it or. I talk about the more you can adapt, the less you have to endure. Yeah, that's the line. Right. The more you adapt, the less you have to endure. So the images are of somebody in an ice bath, like suffering, and somebody. It's Joshua, isn't it? The boxer, I think. I use Andy and Joshua when I do speeches. I couldn't put it in the book. I had to put a different picture. But if I do a speech, I got Joshua having his ice bath, and you've got this woman there who's meditating. And I'm just the point I'm making is, which one's more sustainable? I'm talking about resilience, and resilience is often characterized by grit and endurance. Yeah. All right. And there's something to that for sure, but I think that's a good metaphor. I don't think that's sustainable. I think if you can adapt to something quickly, and ice baths is one of my daily routines. Right? Is it really? I have an outside set at 2 degrees, and it's at least 4 or 5 times a week. So I'm doing it for about 6 years. And there's lots of reasons I do it, but what you'll know is within about 40 seconds, you equalize. Yeah. So it is, Joshua within about 40 seconds would have been sat like her meditating. He would have adjusted, right? The body would adjust, because it adapts. And then after about 60 seconds, you could stay in there for 2 or 3 minutes. It's no harder than the first minute. The first 40 seconds is shocking, and it still is every day shocking. But you're going to equalize, you're going to adapt, and then suddenly you're in exactly the same situation. The situation is no different. Ice bath is an ice bath. If you set it at 2 degrees, it's shockingly cold for about 40 seconds. So knowing that, you can lean into difficulty, knowing that you're going to adapt. Or if you can find some strategy for adapting, so the quicker you can adapt, the less you have to endure. I like that, Anne. The quicker you can adapt, the less you have to endure. If you're not adapting to this world changing, this is an endurance test. If you couldn't adapt in 2020 to what was happening in the market, it was an endurance test. The quicker you adapted to that and thought about, what do I need to focus on? What do I need to get better at? What do I need to learn? And you start to adapt to the demand, well, the less you have to endure. Do you think that's why a lot of people at the moment feel as stressed as they seem to? You talk about it brilliantly in the book. You talk about, companies never used to talk about having a wellness program. And, I'm absolutely all in on the wellness thing, because I think we've been conditioned to fix our health rather than maintain it and look after it, and focus on wellness rather than getting sick and fixing it. But do you think that's part of that? But I think that we're focusing on some sense of well-being. Yeah, but also just because most people are trying to do endurance rather than adaptation. Right. Yes, I think you're right. I think if you're just focusing on this is hard. Right. Work's hard. Life's hard. I'm not saying it isn't, by the way,
But that's not a good or a bad thing.
But it's hard.
Hard's not bad.
But hard compared to what? Like,
Yeah, exactly right.
World War II bombs dropping on you. That was hard too. It's but it's all relative, isn't it? It's like hard is perspective to your generation. Like my dad looks at my son and goes, the things he's complaining about, like can't get good Wi-Fi signal in this restaurant or something. I like what like he grew up in a time when hard was outside toilets, right, and all of that. And
compared to what's a good question. But if you use the term like this is hard and it's an endurance test, if that's the language you use, well, then it kind of feels like that, right? This piece around well-being. So my take on the well-being has got a whole genre over there of good stuff.
Yeah.
Whatever over there means. I operate here in the business, in the corporate sector. I'm into the well-being agenda as a facilitator for performance.
Okay.
Right. So for me, performance is key critical.
Yeah.
Because that's how we're measured in life, by ourselves and by others. So anything that can be done to facilitate high-end performance and elite performance in anything is interesting to me. And a well-being strategy, something around recovery, is a necessity, not a it's not optional, right?
So give us what are your top 5 things that you do that help you with performance? What are your top 5 go-tos?
Okay, so some will be a recovery strategy.
Okay,
right.
We'll talk about that in a minute, right?
Yeah, recovery.
Give us the 5 first.
Okay, so one will be having a priming process. I'll give you the daily ones. Things I do on a regular basis.
Great.
So in the morning, I'll have a priming process where I'm just thinking very clearly about 3 things. One, what is not just what my desired outcome is today, and I'll always take 15 minutes. I don't, we could talk meditation, we could talk whatever your breath work, whatever your medium is. I have a range of them. But the fundamental outcome is, by the time I get out of this 15, 20 minutes, I'm very clear. I've set my seeking system up for my 1 or 2 priorities. This is going to happen today. Of all the things that are on my to-do list, there's 1 or 2 things that are key critical that must happen.
Right.
So I want to dial that in.
Okay.
So that's my first one. Second one I talk to myself a little bit about is I do the gratitude piece. I used to think gratitude was a bit like navel gazing. I wasn't sure what the value was. But when I looked at the science and the data behind it, and the serotonin release and the dopamine release, so you get in these 2 systems engaged. What gratitude really does is what you're telling your nervous system is, this thing I'd like to have in my life.
Yeah,
I want more of that.
Yes,
it's not saying I'm satisfied. It's saying I'm grateful that it's there, and because that's what I want.
Yeah.
But also you get a sense of satisfaction too, which feels comforting. It feels good. So that's why you feel nice.
I think it's a sense of progress too. It's like, stuff's moving in the right direction.
Right? Yeah. It's actually it's a performance strategy to me. It's not necessarily just a well-being thing, having gratitude. It's a performance strategy.
It's really interesting, actually. If you listen to, I'm big on F1's a big thing for me. If you listen to a lot of the drivers afterwards, they're like Lewis is particularly good at this. He'll talk about, I'm grateful for the team. I'm grateful for how it was. Really comes from a place of gratitude. And I'm like, that's intentional as much as anything else.
Yeah.
Now, whether that's being taught or whether that's being, but some people are they're very like making sure they're grateful for the people around them. And because none of us succeed on our own, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. And I'm quite clear with with gratitude as a word. Again, some people will just roll their eyes, right? And I get that. So even if you don't say it out loud, and it's being very specific. And as I'm thinking about what are you grateful for, you've got to sit into it. You've got to feel that feeling. It's the feeling that you're just programming yourself with, right? Whatever gets you there. And frankly, for me, as I'm looking ahead to my day, and I'm thinking about, because not everything we do is like easy for us. I'm challenged on a regular basis, but I know if I can lean in the right state, that's as good as I got, and that'll be more often than not enough, right? So when I'm thinking gratitude, I'm grateful for the challenges I got today. I'm grateful for the opportunities. I got these 3 things I'm going to do, which are intense, but man, I get the opportunity to do it. So it's not just grateful for the nice things in life, like family, friends. That's valid.
Yeah.
But I'm attaching gratitude to the process of performance as well.
You can be grateful for the lessons, right?
You can be grateful for the lessons, yeah.
It doesn't have to be stuff. It can be, I'm grateful I got through today. Or
that'll do.
Sometimes you just be grateful.
Yeah.
I'm grateful I get to go up tomorrow and have another go at this because today did not go the way I planned, but I'm grateful I get tomorrow.
It's just a moment of just disconnect where you allow yourself to just dwell on that. Your brain chemistry changes, and all I want to do is trigger some good neurons in my brain, get some endorphin going, get a bit of dopamine, right? As I look ahead to the day, I get a little adrenaline maybe. So what am I going to achieve today? What's very clear about that? Something that I'm grateful about as I lean into the day. And the third thing is, what am I not going to do today? What am I not going to do today?
That's a great question.
Right?
That's a great question.
Because there's so many things we can get into and drawn into. And I get really clear on, even if I got a thing to do, there's always a list, and I've always got a level list. There's things on there, and I'm just going to, today, that, and that is not happening, and I'm not going to be distracted by it. I might have something like what I'm not going to do today. I'm not going to get stressed about something specific. I might have something in mind that I'm just playing with. Okay, I'm not going to do. I'm just not going to get stressed about that today. Now, I know you've got to be careful with the word not, because if you say I don't, don't think of the color blue, you think of the color blue. But I know enough about that to be able to distract myself.
You can distract that, can't you?
Yeah, you can.
Because I think that's a great question, because I think when you look at strategic plans, one of the most important parts of a strategic plan is to say, what are we not going to do next year? So we're not going to go into these markets, or we're not going to sell these products, or we're not, we're going to stay focused on this, and we're not going to do that. I love that idea every day of going, okay, what am I not? I'm not going to get sucked into it. I mean, it was interesting today. I mean, obviously in the studio with you, we got 3 podcasts today, and I made a decision before I came in here is I'm not going to check my phone until the end of the day. And I've told people, do not expect me to be available till the end of the day, because I went, right, that's something I'm not going to do, because it would impact the performance. It would impact me being present, actually, which I think impacts performance.
Everything. Well, fundamentally, that is performance. Right. So being able to dial into the moment and be saying to yourself, there's nowhere else I'd rather be right now than here. In any situation, if you have that one line, take nothing away from this, take that one line, no matter what just happened, and you may have just lost the point in tennis, or you may have just come out of a deal that didn't work, or right in the middle of a conversation, you're feeling you're being challenged. In your mind, if you can just have that one mantra, there's nowhere else I'd rather be now than here.
Love that.
Right? Just to dial you back in. So that's another.
That was 3, right?
And then the next thing I always try to get aligned are these 3, and this will kind of get us into flow states in some sense.
Okay, great.
With these 3 levels of goals. So you've got direction of travel, right? That's your North Star, whatever your purpose is.
Right.
Each to their own on that, but having some sense of why you get up in the morning. I'd like to just remind myself of that, because it's easy not to remind ourselves. So I get just very clear to get clear on that. This is why I do what I do. And then below that, you've got your mission critical goal. And there's probably going to be 1 or 2 a year, 6 to 12 months, specific, targeted. Okay. So I get really clear that 1 or 2 goals of this year I'm really focusing on, just to keep myself dialed in. And then the daily focus goals feed into those. So there's a hierarchy: direction of travel, mission critical, daily focus. The daily focus goals you can't be too specific on. So as long as my daily focus goals are connecting to one of my mission critical goals for the year, and my mission critical goals connect to why I do what I do, intrinsic motivation is pretty much guaranteed.
Okay.
Right? Because I'm just aligning my actions.
Could you walk us through an example of that, just to make it real?
Yeah. Well, let's say I picked the Ironman as an example.
Yeah, okay, great.
Right? So my overriding purpose as I look to the future, everything I do is dialed into equipping people to lean into their adventure.
Right.
My words hasn't got to mean anything to anybody else, right? So that excites me. The idea of that excites me. Whenever I walk into an audience, they don't know. I'm not going to tell them. In my mind, why do I do what I do? To equip people to lean into their adventure. So what are my goals to sit below that? Well, one of the goals that year was to do the Ironman. Why would I do that? Because I'm going to learn so much about neuroscience and performance psychology and physiology and biomechanics. Because I think learning things about that, recovery, the power of recovery. I'd never thought recovery, never even crossed my mind. Athletes, they'll tell you it's equally as important as the training you do. Didn't really think about it before, which I was always injured. So I'm now going, okay, so learning how to do this thing and deliver this outcome is feeding into my ability to do my purpose, because I'm going to learn things that I'm going to share at some point. Well, then what's my daily target goal today? Well, I've set up 2 training sessions today. One's about to start in 20 minutes when I go for the run. I come back from that. I'll have the ice bath at some point an hour later. And then I got a session at 6 o'clock tonight when I swim. Right? So they're my daily target focus goals. They have to happen, right? Because it's connected to my mission. Now, my mission critical goal might be to write a book, right? My mission critical goal might be to build the business, to extend the business, or it could be a business target, right? Whatever the mission critical goal is, there's always going to be, I've always got 2 a year. I don't have more than that. I mean, there's lots of goals in life, but there are 2 mission critical ones that are fundamental.
Okay.
And I just want to make sure that every day I'm doing something that connects to those. And there's lots of other things we do in life, right? And in my day, but I want to get to the end of when I reflect on the day and go, yeah, those 2 things I said I was going to do that connect to that, which feed into my purpose. So my why I do what I do, what I'm trying to achieve, and how. So why, what, how, That's the three elements of setting up this seeking system.
Yeah.
So that, more often than not in life, you feel like you're on target, like you're on purpose, like you're on track, like the direction of travel is something that's drawing you towards it. So there's not so much, I don't find myself having to try to get motivated because that 15-minute little process that's quite fine-tuned and hardwired is a little reminder, and then I'm off at it.
Do you have it's a great protocol, by the way. Do you have an environment or a space or a place that, I know that in Tiny Habits they talk about going to a place where you do that kind of thing, so that there's a discipline of sit in this chair and then do you have that? Do you have a right?
Yeah, I'm 9 out of 10 times I'm outside.
Right. All right.
Because, if I'm not, so again, there were different protocols for different days, but there's a system to it. So I've got this 15-minute focusing process. I'll then have 15 minutes, which it'll be a breathwork protocol.
Oh, wow.
That's designed to trigger adrenaline. Because if you can trigger adrenaline when you're feeling, if you can keep your mind calm while your body's active, think about everything you do under pressure. You're going to do a speech, right? You want your mind to be, your body's active. You got adrenaline hit, your heart's going. Even I don't care how many times you've done certain things, you're going to get a rush. You're going to get a bit of adrenaline. If I can keep a calm mind when my body's active, you're putting in a game of golf, you're serving a game, whatever the sport is.
You're sitting in a sales meeting, you're raising money, finance, whatever, right?
Whatever it is, you're about to do the pitch. Your body will be active.
Right.
You're going to have a trigger of adrenaline. All right, it is what it is. But if your mind is active at the same time, right, that's going to be a problem. So you keep your mind calm while your body's active. So this little breathwork protocol, jumping in the ice bath's the same. You jump in the ice bath, your body activates a tremendous amount of adrenaline. But that's okay, as long as you know how to calm your mind and you focus on your breathing, and then you find yourself in 20, 30 seconds calming yourself down in that extreme environment. This is a system to me where I'm training my nervous system to walk into an event, a conference, high-stakes situation, pressure meeting, going to get exactly the same reaction in your body. It's the same system, but I'm utilizing things like breath work and ice baths to train my mind to be calm while my body's active.
Yeah.
Because then, being stressed out, my body's stressed. I don't mind that. As long as my mind's calm in that situation,
that's a great distinction.
Then I'll perform well, right?
Yeah, that's a great distinction.
Taking things, my job is to walk into a conference, let's say, is one element of it. I still find that challenging, stressful, exciting. Call it what you like. All I know is my heart rate's up to about 140, pretty much when I'm not doing anything. I'm not running. My heart rate will be about the same as if I went for a 2-hour run.
Yeah.
Still, after 30 years. Lots of reasons for that. Why? Well, because I totally value what I do. I want it to be the best. Today is the best one it's ever going to happen, as the way I see every speech I do. So I want to be in the moment, dialed in. Know where I'd rather be. I use that mantra quite a lot.
Love
right?
that.
And I want to make sure I primed myself that no matter what happens, it'll be what it'll be. I won't let myself down by getting stressed mentally. I'm not going to come out of there going, oh, I forgot to say that, or I didn't do that. Because I'm utilizing these hacks, right? Like jumping in an ice cold water, which seems ridiculous to me and had for many years. But all I know is I know the data. I know, forget all the other benefits you get from it. I know that when you acclimatize in 40 seconds and your heart rate drops down, and I can show you the Whoop data on me in an ice bath where it spikes like this, the adrenaline, and then within about 20 seconds it drops down, and for the next 3 minutes in the ice bath, my heart rate's about 75 beats a minute from 150 when I got in. Okay, so look at that. That's the same as a speech. If you see my data from a speech, I'll walk on stage. My Whoop data will show you my heart rate's about 140, 130. Within about 2 minutes, it drops down to about 70, 80 beats a minute, and it stays there for the whole speech.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm talking? It's a process of conditioning,
it's conditioning
yourself to be able to perform at the thing that you do. That's part of my protocol.
There is a caveat, and I'm going to say this because I was told this quite rightly so by a cardiac specialist, which is if you have anything dodgy heart condition wise, do not.
I'm not pitching.
But do not get in a car. Do not get in a cold water bath because the spike to your heart can do serious damage.
Yeah,
so as with all things, take advice. So look, I don't think we finished the Ironman story for a second. So I just want to take back to that because I took you off on a detour. Well worth it, by the way. So. It went from being 1 year to 3 years, right? Yep. So like, so you had the bike accident, then COVID knocked it out.
Yeah.
How did you get to do it? And what happened?
So then I got to the stage where there weren't any Ironman events.
Right, because of COVID.
Right. So 3 I'd paid for and signed up for all got cancelled. So I thought I'd do my own. I thought I'm gonna do it on my own.
Okay.
All right. So I did. I set up. There's a course. There's a lake in Caversham, which was all marked out with all the markings on it. It's the training lake. I thought I'll do the swim there. So it's 2.4 miles. I'll get out the bike. I'll get on the bike up and down the A4, Maidenhead Reading, literally loops like this, 112 miles. I live just off the A4, park my bike, get on the bike, run up and down the A4 for 26.2 miles. I'll get a bunch of people to follow me. Right. So I had about 5 or 6 clients, and all my mates had these apps. So I was on this running app, this tracking app. So I wanted to feel like an event, right? I started bang on 6 a.m. in the lake, not a minute, not a second late, like someone was firing the gun.
Right.
And I did it on my own. Now, my goal was, I had 2 goals for this Ironman, right from the beginning, right? When I chatted to my daughter, she said, you got to do this thing, make it amazing, but you got to find out how to do it well. You can't do it and end up in hospital. That's not the point, right? So I had 2 goals.
That would not be a good outcome, right?
No, which happened with I did a marathon. Right. I had a marathon, I had a back operation. You know? So that made no sense. So my 2 goals, I had an end goal and a performance goal.
Right.
Which I think is a good metric in anything. That's a great idea
to do it like that.
Yeah, and in anything that you do, what's your end goal?
Right.
Or what's your performance goal? So I want to get promoted. Well, what have you got to get good at? And what have you got to deliver to be that? So what's the end goal? What's the performance goal? So my end goal was to do this event a second faster than the average of all Ironman finishers ever.
Okay.
And that's all age groups.
Right.
Right. And the average, it's in the book, it was something like 12 hours 31, something like that. It's the average of all finishers. I thought, well, my end goal is to do that in a second faster. That'll be a good result. That'll be my way of going, that's a good achievement, right? It's irrelevant in life, but that was my goal.
Not for you, right? It was very relevant.
I focused my mind.
Yeah, cool.
My performance goal was to feel better at the end of the day than the beginning of the day. Literally feel better. I don't mean just happy. I mean physically not damaged.
Right.
That was my performance goal.
Okay.
So also my training, when I was looking at nutrition, barefoot running, ice baths, breathwork protocols, recovery strategies, whatever they entailed, training strategies, assists, whatever I did, the whole goal, even what I ate. So I had a slow burn, fat burning metabolism. I was in ketosis. So I changed my diet because you just get less inflammation. And I was, at the time I did it, probably 57 and full of aches and pains. So I needed to reduce inflammation. So quite a specific tactic. And of course, by the time I did on the day, and it was without a doubt one of the best days of my life. It was weird. It was surreal. Like there was no one there. I had my family my family were like moving in the car up and down the road with signs, like 3 of them. Like, so I could, an hour later, like, hey, still there, right? But there was no one cheering you on. You know, there was no hubbub, right? At the same time, there was no distraction. And no one was swimming over me in the pool or in the lake, right? So it was good in a sense that I was very calm. It was challenging in that you had to self-serve your own drive, your own motivation, right? And all I can say is, and I do mention this is one chapter in the book, I unpack it. I was dialed in from 6 a.m. I was in this zone, whatever we want to call it, in a flow state.
Flow state, yeah.
Absolutely focused right the way from beginning to end, my eating process, my strategy, everything about what I did. I thought it through and I executed. And I did. I completed it in 12 hours, 24, a little faster than the average, global average. That was good. What was mind-blowing, and I forgot about it until the end of the day, and it's about 8 o'clock, 9 in the evening, where it was all done. And my partner said, I mean, you look like you just, and I wasn't out of breath all day. I didn't stop. I didn't stop. I mean, I had rest breaks, food breaks, but I didn't stop. I pressed all the way through. And at one point was out of breath. Now, why was I not out of breath? And even in my training, the longest run I'd done was probably 8 miles in my training. The longest bike ride, I did 100-mile bike ride, and I did the swim twice, the distance. So I'd never done the distance. I didn't know I could do it. A bit like jumping in your first life bath. You're a little worried you might just collapse, right? Yeah. So I didn't know I could do it. Fundamentally, I was dialed in to do it.
Okay.
But when I reflected on it afterwards, I literally I wasn't out of breath. I was sat like I'm sat now. My legs were aching a bit. My point being, whatever I'd done in my process of preparing for this thing, right, that I didn't know that I could do, worked. That was the takeaway for me. All those simple little protocols like breathwork protocols, the ice baths, whatever they might be, barefoot running. I stacked a load of protocols. Yeah. They worked, right? And I could look you in the eye and tell you what I put in the book, for me, based on my strategy, got the result that I set out to get. And that to me is a metaphor for anything that you're trying to do. It's not to follow the protocol that I had. I needed that one for my biomechanics and my system. And it may not be about a physical challenge either, but it's having real clarity on the goal, real clarity on the performance and the outcome. So 2 different goals, and having a very processed strategy of ideas that you've been testing, even if you haven't tested them in the big event. Yeah. Right. But by the time I started, I backed it. I just absolutely believed. I didn't know. It's probably not until the second half of the marathon I thought, I'm going to do this. This is going to happen. I didn't let myself get too far ahead. Dopamine release, you're better off trickling dopamine into your system with, short wins, right? So, thin slicing, it's that classic, you're going for a run, every lamppost you get to, look at the next lamppost, you break down the challenge. Chunk it down. So, there's no point visualizing the end of the day, sort of 12 and a half hours later at 6 a.m. That's demoralizing, right? All I'm visualizing is getting into a calm state in my swim stroke. All I'm visualizing is trying to get into a good breathing pattern, right? So that I can start to feel like I'm enjoying this process. I mean, focusing on the things that you can control in the moment, and then by the end of the swim, right? Okay, box tick. Now you go into the next piece, right? What's the milestone you focus on? So thin slicing and dripping dopamine into your system is a process that I just learned how to do it. And you kind of know what that's like. It's a bit like when you watch a football match and at the end of extra time and they've gone to penalties, and you got the losing team like lying on the floor cramping, and you got the winning team doing a lap of honor on each other's shoulders, and you go, well, hang on a minute, they've both put in the same amount of time and energy. Yeah. How come they're physically cramping and that team isn't? Well, because they're just flooded with dopamine, with this anticipation of success and the reward they get from it. So I thought, if I can manage that's rather than try and stay motivated, just manage your brain chemistry. Yeah. And your biochemistry. I thought that seems like a manageable thing to look at, which I did, which is what I kind of unpack in the book. Yeah,
which is what I love about the book as well. And I think this is, the reason why I asked you to come on the podcast for many reasons, but one is because I think that entrepreneurs need to learn a lot of these skills, because running a business is a bit like running an Ironman. It is like that. It's tough. It does require a level of mental endurance. It does require a level of strategies and stacking. And you do need to look after your body physically. So just to bring this to a kind of a really beautiful end, I think, can we talk about recovery? Because for me, I got hooked by the statement from Tom Brady, the what's many consider the GOAT from an American football standpoint, right? Who said that the recovery process is as important, if not more important, than the actual game and the playing. And the reason he was able to play for as long as he was, when the average quarterback's lifespan is less than 4 years, right? And he played for like 20 plus.
It's phenomenon,
Till he was 45. In fact, he won his last Super Bowl somewhere in his mid 40s. But he puts it down to a number of biomechanical things that he did differently, but also he puts it down to his recovery process. Yeah, and I know LeBron James says the same thing, right? Like, so when did you what have you learned about recovery that we should know as entrepreneurs? Yeah, like, because if you I think too many entrepreneurs get to the end of the week on a Friday, and they go, I've survived another week. Yeah. And then they collapse, and then it's a glass of wine or whatever. And it's like, and that's not recovery. That's not recovery. No. So talk to me about what you've learned about recovery that would help us. Yeah. Because we don't get a season off like pro athletes do. We don't get 2 months off in the summer. We don't have that luxury. Yeah.
And also in sports, the difference between business and sport, and a difference between somebody who's in a business and somebody in sport, is, sports people are preparing all week for one day. Right. Where we got to do it every day. Yeah. Right. So this idea that, you push, collapse on the weekend. At some point, you get to this point of diminished returns where you're trying, your performance is dropping, even though it's like Wednesday. Right, or pushing through a full day, thinking you're on your A game. Yeah. By about 4 p.m., cognitively, you're not. No. Right, so you're not performing at your best. It's admirable what you're doing. You're pushing and challenging yourself. So let's not negate your intent, but the strategy is not that effective. So initially, I was introduced to the concept of, I say obviously, but through sport, through training for the Ironman. I spoke to a few people and said, well, give me a few tips. What are your lessons? And one person said, The necessity, not luxury of recovery was a statement I wrote down.
Wow.
The necessity, not luxury. And they said, yeah, you got to train at least 50% of your training time should be recovery. You train for 2 hours, you should be building an hour's recovery. I said, and I like, really? Okay. So I was looking at it through that lens, thinking this is just a physical thing. This is about physical recovery, right? Makes sense. Like if you're burnt out physically, you need to lie down, right? You need to stop, right? So, and then because I got this, I'm wearing this Whoop strap, capturing, data for the last 7 years. I noticed something really interesting. So I got to the end of a week, and I'm looking at my data, and so in the morning, if you don't wear them, and not everybody, when you wake up in the morning, it gives you a score, recovery score from yesterday, which basically is a culmination of everything, HVR, all the strain, right? Heart rate variability, resting heart rate, things like respiratory rate, sleep percentage. So it kind of takes everything and says, this was your strain from yesterday. These were the things you did that put energy back in the tank.
Yep.
And your recovery is X. If it says your recovery is, say, 75%, it'll say you're primed and ready to push for the day. Take on strain. If your recovery is 23, it'll say recovery's low, focus on recovery, prioritize recovery today, right? And I thought from an athlete's perspective, that makes perfect sense because you're physically going to break down. So I'm looking at my data and my recovery score is about 23, like really low. Like that's like you've had an all-night party type low. And you trained and ran a marathon yesterday type low, right? And I thought, well, what the hell did I do yesterday? So I looked at my sleep stats. Yeah, pretty good. I had reasonable night sleep. I usually go to sleep about 11. I get up about 6, typically latest. So, that's a normal night. I had a pretty normal night's sleep. Why is my recovery so low? And then it gives you the strain figure, right? The strain was like 20.2, which is like right at the top of the strain continuum. Then you can go and look at, well, what activities produce strain? Now, this is where I had this aha moment. Look back yesterday, and I thought, well, I didn't even train yesterday. I didn't even go out on the bike, right? What did I do yesterday? I had 2 speeches. Right? I spoke at 2 conferences. Looked at my strain figures for these 2 speeches, and I alluded to this yesterday with my heart rate will elevate when I walk into a conference, right? And by the way, they were both on Zoom. I wasn't even out of the house for this.
Really?
I just sat on a stool looking at a screen, and my the strain score was exactly the same as a 2-hour run.
Wow.
For a 1-hour speech.
People don't understand this. I try and explain it to some of my team. They do not understand. If I do a whole day on stage, it is exhausting mentally and physically, and the strain it puts on my body is it's
and I can show you the data.
It's intense. I can show you on my oil rig. Right. It's brutal. It's like, and the day after, I'm done. I'm wrecked. I don't want to talk to people.
Yeah, because being strain is not a negative thing. Strain, you need to build strain to build more resilience, right? And capacity, right? But you can be in a stressed state, as in a highly activated state. You got adrenaline, you got endorphins going on, some good brain chemistry. But let's say you're in flow. If you're dialed in the zone, that's exhausting. Not in the moment. In the moment, it's effortless. Like time flies, so everything. You're making great connections. You're thinking clearly. You're making good decisions. You're in the zone. It's a high performance state of mind. But if you don't have recovery from that, which we tend not to in business, I come out of the first Zoom call, bang, right, get prepped up for the next one, click on the next one, bang, getting it prepped for the next one, bang, onto the next call, right? You could be dialed in the zone for some of these calls, but each time your recovery, your need for recovery is going up, and you're not putting the recovery in.
Which is also why people then reach for caffeine stimulants at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
That's
and
exactly what
trying
it is.
to push forward, and then you mess your sleep pattern up, which then causes you issues the next day, and it's like it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah,
right?
And burnout doesn't happen overnight.
No,
it lands overnight.
Yeah,
right. It doesn't happen suddenly. I was suddenly burned out. No, you weren't suddenly burned out. It happened in a heartbeat. It's been happening gradually through time.
Yeah.
So that to me was like wow, like my system is under load through doing something I love to do. It could be a great day, it could be a tough day, but my nervous system doesn't care. It just goes, these are the stats. You're burning energy. When are you putting back in the tank? When's the recharge?
Yeah.
So there's a model that Special Forces use, and I got to run a couple of sessions with them, which is fascinating. And they talk about this model, and because I then thought, well, where do I go to find out how to recover like a professional? Well, elite athletes, they have to do it, but that's sport, and I'm not. It wasn't about sport to me. I thought, well, special forces, I mean, they're operating in high stakes situations. They're under pressure.
Slightly.
Right, yeah. So they have this strategy called oscillation. So oscillation, if it looks like this, right? So it's called stress, recover, stress, recover, stress, recover. So you take on stress, and then you do something that gets you to cognitively, physiologically restore, and then you take on more stress. And you recover, because that's like our day. It's like sales call. So I got 4 things to do today,
I'm the same
which are high stress.
Coaching, and then I'm wiped by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm struggling.
So what they would say is, so oscillating is what you do is between 15 minutes between each of those 4 activities. So I'll typically put in 3 or 4 90-day bouts of work. If I'm working at home, like I'm going to get into some flow, get into a deep state of work, 90 minutes, that's enough. Now I got to have a 10 to 15 minute break. And when I say a break, not when I say break, but the data would say is a break is something restorative.
Yeah.
It's not just stopping. Because if I stop and start scrolling on my phone, I'm not anti the phone, but the nature of how
that's not restoring.
The nature of how the phone operates and your brain's processing the data is you're not restoring the cognitively function.
Totally.
So having 15 minutes where I will then go outside, do some breath work maybe, I might do some meditation. I don't want to get too weird, but I may just go for a walk, take the dog out, right? Get a bit of,
which is called walking meditation, by the way.
Walking meditation, right? Just do something that's mindful, where you're dialing as much of your attention into the moment you're in, rather than thinking about the next 3 calls and what just happened. I'll do that anyway, but for this 10 or 15 minutes, putting on some tunes, put some music on, anything that causes you just to switch on to something restorative. 10 minutes, then you're back in for the next thing. Right, got to get back in and do what you got to do, and I'll have these 3. And when I work with people, I say, if you have 1 late morning, 1 mid afternoon, but these 2, they call it active recovery. Active recovery breaks in, where you're doing something that's, it's not rest could be one, meditation could be one. There's another. Yoga nidra is an interesting process. You can look that up. I put it in the book. Non-sleep deep rest. So you're not sleeping.
Yeah.
Non-sleep deep rest is you're just doing like a body scan where you're just getting your brain to focus on something in the moment. A bit like meditation, I suppose.
There's a couple of apps that can help you do that too.
And Andrew Huberman talks about it a lot. Even just defocusing, sitting outside, right? It sounds ridiculous, but even sitting in here, so I can look at a book on the wall, or I can look at that camera over there. As you look at the camera, so I focus on the camera, but then you activate your peripheral vision. So now I can see you there, I can see a camera here, I can see the light there, I can see the floor, and I can see the ceiling. And you let in your soft focus of dissociation comes in, your peripheral vision. When your peripheral vision comes in, what it says to the brain is that's not a threat. In other words, it's not a threat. Like if you're walking in the plains of Africa and you see a lion coming towards you, everything in your focus, your pupils dilate and you focus on the lion, that triggers the stress response. You get adrenaline, you get some cortisol, the stress hormone, super, super efficient, because you want to just focus on what that is approaching this as a threat. You are not aware of anything that's happening in your peripheral vision. If you suddenly, I don't know, if you were a mile back and you saw a lion in the distance, they wouldn't activate the stress response, because you can see, you have perspective. So you can see everything around you, you can gauge where it is, so you're not threatened by it. Now, take that as a metaphor, right? So I go, okay, so if I'm sitting and I can see all my peripheral vision, it tricks the brain into switching off the stress response. So when I'm about to go on stage, this is what I'm my hack, right?
Okay.
So I'll be sitting there, I'm being introduced, and I'm looking at the person introducing me. As I'm looking at them, I'm also actively engaging peripheral vision. I'm seeing the ceiling, the floor, the sides.
Interesting.
Honestly, you got to test this. It takes less than 60 seconds.
Okay.
All you're going to know is you get this coherence. You get this state of mind where you just feel calm of mind, active body. Mind calms down under pressure. Now, we know intuitively this works. If you go for a walk, like if you go out in nature, people come back and go, I felt so much better after that walk. Well, why did you feel better? Well, probably there was quite a big vista. There was probably a panorama of trees. So even though you're walking, your peripheral vision is taking on board all that information. So if you engage peripheral vision, this is the hack, your nervous system switches off the stress response.
Okay.
When you're dialed in, whether that's something stressful or something that you're just focused on, so it's a good thing too, well, your peripheral vision gets switched off. So it activates this alertness. Okay. I want to be alert in some situations. But if I'm in a room and I'm working with an audience, I feel my stress levels go up. it's become a habit and it's a pattern. I will just literally, as I'm talking, all I'll do is I won't try and think about I feel stressed and what that could do. I'll just engage peripheral vision, and I'll just very quickly get the whole room in my peripheral vision, and you will get a physical drop. And again, I'm into data. I can show you on my heart rate monitor. If you do this, check your heart rate, engage your peripheral vision for 60 seconds. You'll notice your breathing will suddenly. You'll probably do that involuntarily. 60 seconds later, check your watch, and you'll notice your heart rate's drop 5 to 10 beats just by engaging peripheral vision. I'm going, I'm having that. That's a hack.
That's amazing.
That's a hack, right?
Okay.
And you can use breath work.
I'm so using that. Right.
So it's a recovery hack. It's between calls, doing something that just restores you, recovers your state of mind. Right, let's go again. So oscillating through the day, you're draining the battery in a good and a bad way. And you're gonna recharge the battery in these little short, bite-sized chunks. It's not just physical; it's cognitive too, because cognitive function is going to affect most of us as much as physical energy.
Yeah, I love that. I had a moment yesterday. I had early morning calls with I've got a team in the Philippines and stuff, and also at 3 o'clock I just hit a wall. I was like, and I had an hour sort of between 3 and 4 that I'd carved out, and I was like, right, and I went upstairs, and I'm very lucky. I've got a red light bed in the spare room, and I just went, right, getting in the red light bed for half an hour.
That's a recovery strategy.
Right, but half an hour, and I nodded off because my Whoop said I'd knocked off for 25 minutes in it, and I woke up, had a shower, and then I was back on it, and 4 or 5, because I have calls at 4, 5, 6. Yeah. And I finished the day feeling great, and I was like, well, that's really interesting, because I just
interesting.
20 minutes, and that's what I think sometimes you have to go, okay, well, what did I do differently, and what changed the outcome? And you go, oh, that's interesting, and now how can I make that a protocol? And I'm sitting here thinking now, and I'm going, that's interesting. Next year, I'll make sure that I block out between 3 and 4 every day for a recovery zone in the afternoon, because if you can, and but it's that whole having that intention of, if I want to perform at peak, I need to understand that I cannot just keep pushing at peak all day.
No, you can still. I'm all for pushing. I'm all,
but when you're recharged, right? If you push on an empty battery, you're going to break it.
So you oscillate. You kind of go push, and take. If you took.
If your car battery's at 2 and you floor it in an electric car, you'll break the car.
10 minutes at 11 o'clock, 10 minutes at 1 o'clock. You might have a lunch break, you might not. I don't always take a lunch break. And then I'll do it again, 10 minutes in the afternoon, certainly maybe half an hour, a little later, but 3 o'clock, you need a bit of a boost. It's just knowing what your energy levels are like. If you check in, you go.
But this is really important with teams, isn't it, as well? So, because if we're talking about personal flow now. Yeah. And then if you employ people, and a lot of people listen to this podcast, they have teams and they employ people, you've got to also think about your team and when their team are in flow. Yeah. And don't set really important team meetings for 3 o'clock in the afternoon, because you're probably not going to get the best out of people. Yeah. And again, I think this all kind of relates to just understanding people's individual energies and how they function, right? Yeah. So, seeing as you gave me a brilliant hack for being on stage, let's talk about you. You're going to come and you're speaking at this year's Scale Up Summit. Yeah, great. Which we're like, so I'm really excited about that. Sure. We'll drop a link below if you're listening to this, or just go to scaleupsummit.co.uk. You're going to be speaking on day 2 from. So what are people going to get from that presentation? What are you going to teach entrepreneurs that are looking to scale their businesses and achieve a level of higher performance? I'd say higher performance, productivity, and profitability. Yeah. So what's your session going to help them get to? Yeah. Well, I think we're going to focus on the power of momentum. I think I want to bring that in. Great. I mean, it all comes under the umbrella of the science of performance, because I want to make sure that it's data led. The session isn't. I don't dive too deep into the science, right? Let's be pragmatic. We want results, we want actions, we want strategies. Yeah. But I do want to unpack these 3 elements of the process I set up in the book, which is better, smarter, stronger. Tapping into potential. It's overused, this term, right? We've got to tap into our potential. And I go, well, okay, I wonder, how, right? If you tap into your potential, you're probably performing better by doing that. Right. So how do you, as an individual and as a team, how do you tap into the potential of a room? So potential is all about, and better at what? What does it look like? So clarity of intent. We'll talk a bit about what happens when you have this seeking system switched on. I'll demonstrate it. So they'll see what it feels like to switch on this system and what it feels like not to. Right. We'll talk a little bit about also, what that direction of travel takes you to in your business.
as an individual or as a collective. So having that clarity of intent, the clarity of why am I doing what I'm doing? So we're going to unpack that a little bit. So better, tapping into potential, switch on the seeking system, get some clarity of direction. Phase one. Part two, to really turbocharge this seeking system, is about aligning the sort of mindsets that need to connect to this intent. And I got some really interesting, I won't go into too much detail now, but some stuff on belief systems.
Yep. Oh,
and we all know belief makes a difference.
Yeah, 100%.
The question is, again, it's an abstract. So how do I often use this term again, it's not what you believe, it's what you need to believe in order to cause you to lean in. Well, what is that? What are the belief systems that are going to get people to really lean into what this direction of travel is?
Actually,
right? So we get really specific on that, and I give some good examples of it. And in fact, it's a great example I'm using at the moment from the Ryder Cup last year. Now, sport's not for everybody, golf's not for everybody, and I show this 60 seconds. There's no golf shots here. I don't show any golf shots here. What I show you is Luke Donald talking you through the dressing room setup.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
And it's
let's not give it all away.
I'm not going to give it away
because we want people to buy a ticket to come to the event.
I'm not going to give it. I'm going to say what he talks about though is the strategy for how to build a psychological home game when you're in a geographical away game. Metaphorically, anything that's just challenging or uncomfortable, like the Ryder Cup in New York was.
The other thing I learned about them, which is amazing, is he got them all trained with VR glasses. I don't know if you saw this.
I didn't know.
Because he knew they were going to get loads of abuse and heckling and stuff like that. So what they did was they had a program written where they would spend up to an hour or more a day just in the VR world, going through the course, playing it. But in the VR world, they were getting abuse hurled at them when they went to play the shots in the VR world.
Yeah.
So by the time they turned up there, they'd become kind of desensitized to the abuse in that way of like okay, we've been training with this.
They've been training themselves to stay calm of mind while their body's active.
Yeah.
It's the same model, isn't it?
Yeah, there were a couple of moments when Rory lost it.
He lost it a bit, and
he's a passionate guy, isn't he? So.
But they would have, they know they're going to walk into that environment, and they're going to be, their heart rate's going to be up, and they all track their data. It's fascinating looking at their data, right? And as long as they can stay calm of mind, so that practice in the VR goggles is training them to stay calm while their body is freaking out, because it will, right? Yeah.
So last thing, you're gonna can we do a bit? Would you be okay to dive into a bit about recovery strategies? Because I think entrepreneurs is one of those skills that I think most people don't have, and it's certainly been a game changer for me the more I focused on it.
Yeah.
But I'd love it if you could kind of, because I think that would draw the conference to a beautiful end in terms of going, right, when you get out of here, here's how to maintain performance, and some of that is to have active recovery strategies.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And we'll tie it to resilience, to this concept of, how do you build the structure in the brain that is that connects to things like resilience and willpower, because you're going to need those, and how you fuel them is having a really clear active recovery strategy. So we'll definitely cover that as well.
Brilliant. 2 questions for me. What are the top 2 business goals you've got right now for the next 12 months? What are your top 2 business goals? Okay, so the first goal is focusing on writing another book. Okay. So I'm playing around with the title at the moment. I'm kind of leaning towards, whereas that was Unashamedly Superhuman, I'm thinking I'm going to write a book called Unashamedly Human. And it's all about the human connection to a tech world. Oh, nice. Right. So that's okay. That's next year. What's the second one? The second one, I have I went over to the University of British Columbia, and created a digital online self-directed learning program. So like 50 short videos, and that's all been completed now. So next year, I have a very specific goal, is in launching a digital online, I haven't got to be in the room strategy. Yeah, cool. That it's the way people learn. It's anyway. Global impact too, right? Global impact. It's the way people learn, and I don't want to not do what I do, so I'm not going to pare back in terms of my activities and my speeches, because that's what I want to do. But it's also leverage for you, right? But it's good leverage. It's good leverage. So I've already kind of started on it, but that strategy will be designed, delivered, launched, the brand's been finished this week. So I'm in it, but next year I'm going to complete it. Love it. Well, if there's anything I could do to help with that, just ask. For sure. Lived in that world for a long time. In fact, just before COVID, I was over in America at a conference with 4,500 funnel hackers and online marketers, literally the week before the lockdowns. Wow. And funny enough, Tony Robbins was the last keynote speaker at that event.
Was he?
And he was coming on talking about winter's coming, you need to be ready, like winter economically is coming.
Good timing.
And we were all like, because at the time everyone was like, and he did a whole session about like how to get ready for it. And then like literally 2 weeks after we got back from that conference, I don't even think it was 2 weeks. It was like world went into lockdown, and suddenly online marketing became the number one skill to have at that particular point. And I look back and go, wow, that event was, a pivotal change in a lot of things that happened, and meant that, our business grew during COVID because of some of the stuff that I learned, which I think is a testament to, listen, if you want to really accelerate, you and I are big believers in this, you got to get in different rooms, you've got to hang out with different people, you've got to put yourself in environments where you can do total immersion learning, because you'll learn more in 2 days at one of our events than you'll learn in, frankly, 2 years in most life, right? And time is the commodity we can't get back. So scaleupsummit.co.uk, there's a link below in this. If you haven't grabbed your ticket, grab it now. Last question for me, and by the way, just first of all, thank you so much for today. Brilliant conversation. Like I think we might have beaten Brian's time, not that we were competitive, but a brilliant conversation. 30 years in the making and so worth it. What's your definition of a grown-up business, just out of interest? What do you think a grown-up business looks and feels like, given some of the businesses you've been involved with, worked for, and kind of spoken for?
Well, that's a good question. I'll tell you, something you said earlier on about the finite and infinite. I'd attach something from that to being grown up. Grown up being there's this longevity in their ambition.
Right.
And that doesn't mean, I'm not to say that people shouldn't have short-term goals, or people can flip companies and make a lot of money with short-term strategies. But a grown-up business to me is somewhere where people gravitate towards it. Right? People want to be part of it. They want to work there, and they want to be part of something that has some meaning, some purpose, and some direction. Where maybe you can't even see the end of it.
Yeah.
But you want to be involved in it.
Yeah. I love that. Absolutely. Listen, this has been a brilliant conversation.
Thanks,
Jim, thank you so much for coming on the Grown Up Business Podcast. Can't wait to share the stage with you.
Yeah.
You'll walk out, I'll introduce you, we'll both be stood there and completely the peripheral vision, which makes me, I have to say, that makes me smile, because there was if you ever watch do you ever watch the comedy show Studio 60? Do you ever watch that? It's like, they had a comedy sketch called Peripheral Vision Man and everything, so it just makes me smile. But yeah, we'll both be stood there with our peripheral vision on and impacting people in the best possible way.
Focused.
Listen, thank you so much. Make sure you subscribe, like, share this with at least 2 people who you think need to learn from Jim and his incredible teachings today. And make sure you grab a copy of Unashamedly Superhuman. Link below. Check it out. I'll see you on the next show. That concludes this episode of the Grown Up Business Podcast. I hope that got you fired up and ready to grow. The key thing, though, is to remember you get paid on what you get done. So write down the top 3 actions from this show and make sure that you implement those in the next 72 hours. Hey, and while you're at it, make sure you click the links and the resources below this episode to claim free growth resources to help you build the business you desire and deserve. I'll see you on the next episode.